Hey, this is episode 235. This is a butt pucker moment.
All right. It's a Tone Control with a special guest, Hank from Rattlesnake Cables.
That's right. The Tone Control is not a democracy. That was not the first voted title. So too bad. We'll put the real title of this episode in the show notes for the real players.
No.
So yeah, man.
All right. Oh, wrong button. I pushed there we go. Very first button of the show was the wrong button. Anyway, welcome. And obviously right off the bat, Tone Control show tonight with a guest. Tonight or today, depending on when you listen. I don't know. Anyway.
And what time zone you're in. Hank from Rattlesnake Cables is joining us from Montana.
All right.
How's it going?
Welcome. It's going great. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Thanks for talking about cables and what Rattlesnake is up to.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. I think I mentioned this in our email. A bunch of people in our community have Rattlesnake stuff. Everybody's sort of like, oh, anybody know good cables? And like people pounce on it. Like just go to Rattlesnake, just get Rattlesnake Cables. So awesome. A lot of folks in our group know you just through purchases and stuff like that. So it was like a no-brainer to have you on the show.
I love that.
Fantastic.
I lost everybody again. This is a thing that happens sometimes.
The internet is striking.
There we go. I just the trick is I have to say that I've lost the connection and then it comes back.
It'll float right back. Oh man.
So yeah, I'm coming in hot because I like had a bad after work time, just of like busy schedule. I was like out of the house for a little bit and I just was a little scattered. I'm like 30 minutes behind where I should be, I feel like. So just a little all over the place right now.
I got to tell you, every time, it's not that often that we have a guest, but whenever we do and I pull out my 3-camera version of our layout here, it's always, it comes to me right as the theme music is running that I don't have any way to like have it be just us and then we do our nonsense chit chat and then introduce the guests. So it's always like, oh shoot. This would be super rude to just, so I've got to like leap into it. But that's anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, we're all just very, very in grotesqueries of unprepared, I guess, today. But it's
all good.
Listeners of the Tone Control are not a stranger to that, and they wouldn't be listeners if they expected anything different at this point. But as we were saying, Hank, we normally chit-chat a little bit about nonsense, and then we see how long that goes on, but we will definitely keep that short. But I do have a funny, a story, a little bit what happened to me. Yesterday, as we record this, my wife and I went to a show. It's one of these movies that the orchestra performs the music. So we go to music hall and they show a movie. And we've seen a few of these. We saw a couple of Star Warses like that. We saw Jurassic Park like that. Basically a lot of John Williams. Cool. Actually, I think we did a Harry Potter too. Anyway, it's pretty cool. Yesterday they're showing Black Panther, which one of the better Marvel movies, if you ask me. But I don't know if it's something I would have thought, well, I'd like to see that with the orchestra. But here's the thing, and we didn't even know this till we got there. They actually were sort of, I think they maybe had unsold seats or something, but they had like really cheap tickets as sort of a promo. And we were just like, yeah, that'll be fun. But we go and they have a feature. They basically have a soloist with them, and I can't remember the guy's name now, but a talking drum player, which features heavily in the music. And this guy's like world premiere talking drum performer. And He was wild. It was like the most fun thing to have it. I mean, the live orchestra and everything, but with this essentially soloist. The talking drum is this one where they have it under the arm and they're changing the pitch.
Oh, okay.
And boy, and he's just a madman about it. And it was so cool. And he did
That's cool.
little
That's very
encore
cool.
stuff at the end while after the credits are done rolling and all this stuff. And it was really surprising. And not that we thought it wasn't going to be fun, but it was like so much more than we expected. So I thought that was really fun.
That's really clever to like take the thing, because it would have been cool. Like you're saying, it would have been cool with just the orchestra stuff, but to add this extra layer of a piece of the soundtrack that makes it special, makes it unique, to have that added in at that kind of level. I love that. Yeah. We saw Star Wars in concert when it was on tour. Like it was a Lucasfilm sanctioned thing. It was like a real deal, not just one of these local things. It toured and it had all the movie props. I think I've told this before on the show, but it had it was like a traveling exhibit, and then it was an arena tour. So like in the pavilion areas of the arenas, there was like these exhibits of costumes and props and other live on-screen memorabilia. And it was like this, it wasn't really you watch the movie and they play the music, kind of a one-to-one. It was like a greatest hits from all 6 movies at the time, 6 movies.
So it was focused.
Music focused, but they had a big screen and they'd play pieces of the films and stuff that corresponded with it. And it was hosted by Anthony Daniels. Like he was an MC. And he came out and he had this like really sharp black suit. And he opens it up and it's like all gold on the inside. Like reflective, like shiny foily gold. He was
sort
like
of
the coolest
inverse.
thing.
It's then the inverse of C-3PO. He's gold on the inside.
And he's like telling stories about being on set and like talking about what they're doing and the music and like how it was so cool. It was, gosh, must have been like 15 years ago now, but it was awesome. Maybe longer. Oh my God.
Really
Having one of those moments. Anyway, what's been going on here? Kind of the same old thing. My kid's sick now again, and we had a good run of him not being sick, but I just realized before the show that I think it's in the cadence of the weeks we don't record. So it may sound like my kid is always sick, but it's because kids get sick every 2 weeks.
Only when the tone control records. So
yeah, so he's fine. He's fine. It's not a big deal. So that's all that's been going on here, I guess. We'll talk about this later, but I picked up a vintage delay pedal that I've had my sights on for a really long time, and I'm excited. I got it for a really good price, so we'll hit that later in the show.
Very sweet.
But yeah.
Sweet.
What's going on with you, Hank? What's going on at Rattlesnake?
Just making tons of cables. That's my day-to-day, 7 days a week, just cranking cables.
7 days. Dang.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Okay.
You got to do what you love, and I'm doing what I love, so.
Okay.
There you go. This is not our full-time job, as you can probably tell by the intense amateur component of it. But yeah, I mean, that's wild though. Good for you.
7 days. Well, take a day every once in a while. Geez. But anyway, well, good to be busy. I always feel like
good problem to have.
Yeah. Sometimes a client. So I work in I do audio production. And usually, or good clients, I should say, typically when I say, oh man, I'm so sorry, it's going to be a while before I get to that, good clients will have a comment that's something more like, that's okay. I don't really want to hire somebody who isn't busy doing this, right? So along those lines, good to be busy and clearly something's going right.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I still don't have a Pedal Genie pedal because they're still working some stuff out.
Yeah,
but I think we should give them a shout and then we can roll into some stuff. What do you say?
All right, here we go.
Thanks to Pedal Genie for sponsoring the tone control. Visit pedalgenie.com and start your wish list today.
Yeah, so do you want to, it looks like wait, is this the pedal you got? Sorry.
I got 2 pedals today.
Oh, okay.
I only added one to the notes because I was not paying attention.
Right on.
And one of them is vintage, so there's no website for it.
Okay. Well, how do you want to tackle this then? So sometimes we do some news stuff, chit chat, and
let's do the pedals then.
Okay.
because I'm excited and I've been waiting like a week for these to come in the mail. So I picked up the 3-muff 14 Big Muff varietal from Rude Tech, and Jesse from Rude Tech. Yeah, Jesse from Rude Tech is in our Discord server, which is super cool. He runs this company out of Nashville. They make this, and I think like one or two other things. Like they're kind of, just really focusing on a little bit of stuff. So this is a Big Muff with the tone wicker and 3 versions of the Big Muff circuit in it, and they're on these like rad mini toggles that are like have the aluminum cage protector thing over it.
Yeah, I was just going to comment on the very like space shuttle.
So like if you look
fighter
up,
jet kind of layout.
I think if you on the site it says something about the design inspiration, and it's like a Russian fighter jet, and that's like because it's this Russian Big Muff thing. So they've got the black, the green, and the Civil War circuits in here, and there's also a second foot switch for mids drive and a trim pot for that, so you can like really boost the mids right on the thing, and that's foot switchable only when the pedal's engaged, of course. But the single red knob for sustain or fuzz, and then the 2 other for the tone pot and the volume pot. It's just like it's got this rad look.
I see Russian right on here in the face.
Yeah, it's so cool. And so he's Rude Tech is working on some new stuff. From what I understand, they need to buy some new equipment. So they were having a flash sale last week, and they had like 20% off of this guy. So I was like, now's the time. I've been feeling going after this because I've been diving into Big Muff a little bit. And I think this is going to replace the couple that I have, which is not a problem for me. So this thing is, I've only played it for, 2 minutes because it came in just this evening before dinner and stuff. But what's really cool is some of the components in here are socketed. And Jesse includes a little grab bag of transistors and other parts to pop into this pedal.
Oh, wow.
So I've got 9 extra components here that I can throw into this thing and kind of mix and match. Yeah. Yeah.
So I see that's got bypass. What's the other foot switch?
The other foot switch is the mid. That's the mid boost. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And there's a little trim pot right on the face of it.
So the little white circle there, I can zoom in. The little white circle has the trim. Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have serial number 188. But I was like, oh, this is cool because he doesn't usually include these extra parts for you to mix and match. And that was part of the flash sale, was a little grab bag of goodies. And I was like, hell yeah, that's cool. I want to check that out. So some weekend I'm going to open it up and just pop a bunch of parts in and out and see what I like, see what I don't like. And it was on sale.
That's
so
awesome.
Like,
Sweet.
Yeah, it's got a cool look. I like it a lot. It's far more on the distortion side of Big Muff. So it's like a distortion sustainer or whatever they call it. So it doesn't have that like super scoopy thing that like the op amp ones do, but it's still fuzz, and it feels far more usable as like a kind of always on rock tone, because it's not just going to disappear. It's like the bottom falls out when the band joins in,
Right.
So anyway, if you look up a picture, actually go back to the website there and
page.
Scroll down. You can see a picture of that they used for inspiration, the inside of a MiG jet.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, look at this. Right? It's got the look. This could fit right in there.
The paint color and everything. Wow.
Yeah. So cool. So cool. And then the other pedal I got is not new in the slightest. I bought vintage Ibanez DML10 modulation delay 2. And this is like from the TS10 series, like the now extra super duper famous tube screamer that John Mayer is responsible for. It's part of that line. What's really funny to me, like longtime listeners of the show will know that I'm into mechanical keyboards. The foot switch in here is a mechanical keyboard switch.
Oh, how
which
come?
Is on because that is just a switch.
What they used, yeah. Huh.
Yeah, it's just that keyboards used these switches for keys, and it's just a.
That was just an available.
It's just a switch.
Wow.
Doesn't need to be just for keyboards. So anyway, this is it's got like a dry out and a wet out, but it's not stereo. And it is the weirdest delay. It's digital, so it'll have that super crisp thing, but it's vintage digital. So there are still some artifacts in it because it's like new digital at the time.
Yeah.
Not perfect. and it's actually kind of hard to see because of like the reflection on the case. But this thing will go so fast that it turns into a chorus kind of intentionally, and so fast that it turns into a flanger very intentionally. So there's this like really heavy modulation to it with depth and width controls, and it's width and speed, and those two interact with each other in a really weird way to do all kinds of actual time-based modulation stuff that isn't repeating delays that you would normally think of. And it's absolutely wackadoo. It is totally wonky. It is weird and kind of like, it's very easy to do too much, but I've seen a few demos on it. I really love the sound it makes, and I had been chasing a good deal on one. Watched it on Reverb for like over a year, trying to wait for a good price to come along, and I got one free shipping too, which is friggin' sweet. I got here in like 3 days, which is unbelievable. So I'm going to do a demo at some point when I can find some time of both of these together, because they kind of have a similar look. The base color is kind of similar. Figured why not pair these up and do a cool proper pedal demo with some drums and bass and stuff. Yeah. So keep an eye out for that.
So is that like old fashioned digital? Is that like crunchy, like aliasing? Like, is it they did it wrong kind of, they didn't know how to do it right kind of thing? Or is it just I'm trying to imagine.
I'm still not sure. I don't have an answer to that yet, because I've again only played it for 5 minutes, but in that 5 minutes it was doing a lot of very odd pitch bending and stuff. So but
yeah, I would think that you'd notice right away if it was kind of wrong, because what I'm thinking of is like the way
it's more like the fidelity. But sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, well, the way digital audio works is like, as long as you're filtering it properly before you're converting, you know what I mean? So it's the Nyquist filters and stuff like that. As long as you're not including stuff that is outside, you're not feeding it stuff that's outside the range of what it can digitize. Based on its sample rate, right? Like you can actually have pretty low kind of bit depth audio that still sounds relatively correct. Again, if you're dithering it correctly and filtering it correctly. And that's one of the things that happened with a bunch of early keyboards and stuff like that, is they had this unbelievably bad sound, but it's because they hadn't figured out how to deal with digital. And it was like, so now we think of it like, well, oh my God, 8-bit. It's like, well, I mean, you can make 8-bit digital audio sound okay if you're dithering it correctly, And, so anyway, that's interesting to me.
Well, so, like on a tape delay or an analog delay, as the repeats go, there's this filtering that's happening. Like it's either the top is getting cut off or the bottom is getting cut off. It's still doing that kind of thing, kind of when it shouldn't, because it's digital. And it's not like there's not like a high pass filter or something on the thing. So you're getting this kind of weird filtering. I don't know what else to call it, but like there's something happening to the EQ and the repeats that a modern digital delay will not do, which I'm sure you could dial in on something like the Timeline or in Helix and stuff, but it's not.
You'd have to be approximating it. That's fun.
Yeah. So,
cool.
And I kind of just felt a little bit like getting into like a vintage pedal for a bit. I don't know. I had one for a while and I sold it, and I don't miss the pedal, but I miss having a thing that was like older than me. And I thought that was kind of cool.
This is a cooler one though, right? I mean,
yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The other one was a Boss BF2 flanger, but
that's fine. But
I sold it like last year. Like I only recently got rid of it. And considering this thing is from like 1981 or something, it's in amazing condition. It's just a little dusty. There's one chip in the paint, but I was like a little worried it was gonna need some TLC. But it seemed
I got
really
a chip
good
or two in my paint, and I was from '83. It's doing all right.
Nice.
You sold the BF2 though.
I did. Those. Yeah, I wasn't using it, and it was a little too aggressive for me. Like I preferred the kind of tape flange sounds over like the swooshing jet sounds, and I hadn't used it in over a year, and that was kind of the like, it's just I have too many pedals as it is, and it's sort of collecting dust. So I sold it to a friend. Like it's still kind of in the network,
That's okay.
It's around. It's around.
Yeah, you need it.
Yeah, like yeah, and I forget what I bought with it, but I put it towards more gear, obviously, as you do. So yeah, that's the deal. That's what's going on. That's what I got for show notes.
What Hank? What do you get on with pedals? We're gonna start there, and then we'll circle back to the whole big thing. But since we're talking about pedals, like what's your home base as far as I figure pedals are prime territory for somebody whose business is cables, because I mean by necessity, I mean they do actually create cables, don't they? They create the need for cables.
You need them. Yeah, you need cables. Yeah. As far as effects wise, I've kind of been in a rut for the last few years, but Dispatch Master, pretty big on my list.
Yeah. All right. That thing kicks. That's
lead boost. I always go back to I have a Creation Audio Labs Holy Fire. That's kind of my jam for the leads. Strymon Blue Sky. Always on.
Nice.
I also have a carbon copy that's always on, just a real light.
Those are so good. I've never actually owned one, but they are like, you can't go wrong having one of those.
Yep. And that's pretty much it. That's kind of like my go-to. Sometimes I throw a little trem in there. Been kind of kicking around the idea of a chorus on something, but I haven't really brought one out yet. And mainly amp distortion for just general crunch or just grit is my amp. Yeah. So really the Holy Fire is the only thing I use to like take it over the edge.
Nice. What are you doing musically? I'm like jumping to kind of like the last question here. What are you up to musically?
We're starting from the middle and working our way out.
Are you doing a band or anything like that, or just
I'm in a band here in Missoula called JAG. It's a JAAG, hard A. Okay. And then that started about a year ago. And now we've been playing 4 shows in. So just finally got to the point of getting all the players and getting shows booked. I'm always amazed how, in general, people have no idea like how hard it is from 2 people initially talking about, hey, let's do a band, to
we should start a band. Yeah.
Writing music, to getting players, to booking shows, to coming up with the name. It's like, it's epic, and people just have no idea. Like, it's like winning the lotto when you actually get to the point where you can actually play on a stage, because it's usually going to fall apart, where to practice, when to practice. It's like, it's just
right.
So many.
I mean, that's
things.
A big hurdle that you've already achieved at this point, right? I mean, it's fairly new, but you've already gotten past like sort of the first big thing. Yeah.
All that admin stuff is just such a drag. And it really can so easily suck the life out of it.
Oh yeah.
If you're not careful.
Yeah. I was in a band that broke up because we didn't have a practice spot. That's so weird to me to like even think of. Just thinking about it is like no one could have practice at their house, and then we were all trying to like emailing back and forth trying to figure out where to practice, and then eventually the emails kind of like slowed down and then just stopped, and the band just died a really anticlimactic death. Yeah, it was just like wow, just a practice space killed the band, or lack thereof.
Wow.
That's probably more common than you think, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
I just joined a new band, a cover band, and it's the first time I'm doing that, and we're practicing at a self-storage facility, and a zillion other bands in town practice there. It's kind of the only game in town, but I got to pay rent. It's the first time I'm paying rent for practice, which is I don't love it, but also
but that's common,
I know.
You've gotten away with it.
Yeah, I know. I'm lucky for not having had to pay rent, but I'm like, ugh. Okay. And it's really a good deal considering, but I don't know. It's just, it's nice to have a place that's not somebody's home that you can just show up to whenever. And it's behind a locked door. You can leave your gear there and it'll be safe. And it's also, you're not like the only band that practices there. There's a zillion bands in that place. So everybody's cool.
So the big question though, is there a toilet?
Yeah. Yeah, we have a key to a private one. Which is amazing.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's worth the rent right there.
That's worth rent right there. Yeah, yeah. I used a different band last year or 2 years ago. Same building, different toilet. It sucked.
It was the worst toilet now.
Yeah, I got the better toilet.
Moving on up.
Moving on up, paying the rent, it's worth it. Worth the whatever we pay, $32 a month. It's insanely cheap, but worth it to have a toilet that's like real and not just a random pipe in the wall. So,
God. Yeah. That's fun. So Derek and I years ago played in a band together for a little while, and I've played in some other bands before that. We have kind of some history, but I personally have about 10 years ago now moved away from New England and got married and moved and never picked up being in a band again. And I don't miss all of the things that we are right now complaining about. It's super hard. And to get to the point where you're playing on stage, like you said, that it's not falling apart and it's fun. And like you play on stage and then it's fun, because that isn't guaranteed either. Nope. So anyway, I still have some of my stuff that gets used here in the studio, but I'm happier on this end of it. But more power to everybody, because boy, I still interact with people all the time, and it's like, on the one hand,
it's a grind. It is a grind.
Yeah. And hopefully I'm a different part of it with them at that point. We're making a recording, and that has its own challenges, but then it's like, they're often, I'm hearing the murmurings, right? Oh, we've got to, and they're talking about sort of the other business end of it, in between things. And it's like,
got to make a set list for next week. All that
don't
kind
miss
of
that.
Yeah. And even with the cover band thing now, there's a lot less of that kind of stupid admin, but you just exchange it for something else. So there's a lot more like trying to find gigs that you're allowed a very long set instead of like a 30 to 45 minute thing doing the original music stuff.
Yeah.
And just I hauled all my gear, guitar, pedal board, the amps and all that stuff like out of the car, down into the basement of the space, many trips back and forth. I was like, this is the part that I forgot about and don't miss. Mm-hmm. But I do this because it's fun.
Most of the time, hopefully, it is fun more than it is not. Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
That's cool. Yeah.
I like that you're doing a band. That's exciting. Well, send us a link to that too. We'll throw it in the show notes if you have a web presence.
Yeah, we only got an Insta right now. That's it. No recordings, nothing.
We're just still Insta.
Yeah, we're still getting up there.
Do it. Yeah. Right on. So, should we do this in like reverse order? That was a question from a Patreon supporter of ours, named Eric, who we don't have a new name for tonight. He always changes his name, but he's working tonight. He wants to know, what's your coffee order?
I just go black, drip. But if I'm feeling frisky, it's an iced vanilla latte.
All right.
But I'm pretty just plain Jane on that stuff. Just black.
There you go. If it works, it works. I like to say, we say on the show, if it sounds good, it is good, in this whole like, who cares like about the status of gear and stuff.
Yeah.
Coffee, if it tastes good, it is good. If you like it, it is good. Who cares? All right. And what's your guilty pleasure movie? Also from Eric.
Oh, guilty pleasure movie. Well, that's a good question. I got so many that are just rambling through my mind right now. Fried green tomatoes. I love that show, man. But yeah, that's probably my guilty pleasure.
I have a thing about guilty pleasures where I don't know, a few years ago decided that it's stupid to feel guilty about the things you love. So just let it be a pleasure,
Yeah, I'm with you.
Don't feel bad about it. Just embrace that shit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we can actually talk about cables and things. So I want to know how did you get started with Rattlesnake? How did you get started in the cable game instead of just some other avenue of guitar gear, pedals, amps, whatever it is?
Gotcha. Well, I mean, it's kind of a weird journey. It's started with there's these robots called beam robots. I don't know if you've ever heard of those. They're or junk bots. That's another term for a lot of it. It was a book I got a long time ago, and it was about taking parts from old electronic equipment, boom boxes. You can get the CD motor, capacitors, parts, whatnot, and then start making these robots that are like light sensitive, not programmable. They kind of move and follow and do just kind of weird herky jerky things. I just thought they were super cool.
Wow.
Is it? I just put a link in the chat. Is it this Hexbug industrial dumpster assortment?
That could be it.
Bots?
I mean, Hexbug, but the acronym is BEAM, and I can't remember what it stands for. BEAM, and
Beam.
because the whole idea was
bots, you
junk
said?
bots?
yeah.
Oh, cool. Okay, so the idea being that you collect scrap parts and stuff from junk around your house and repurpose it into a robot.
So I was super computer nerd at the time, still am, but that really kind of intrigued me. And that led to me buying my very first soldering iron from Radio Shack, right? So then starting to solder, and then that immediately led to pedals. So I was trying to figure out how to make pedals and learn schematics and buying kits and just kind of getting in there. And it was super fun, super frustrating. Just trying to make stuff work. Stuff doesn't work, and you're trying to figure it out. And then one day I was just like thinking I should make some cables. That'd be fun. And made some. Didn't think much of it. Thought it sounded great. And was at a band practice, and immediately my bandmates were just like, "Hey, can you make me one?" I was like, "Sure." Make something. And that was the kind of the first thing where I was like, I didn't even have to try to like. I was making pedals. No one was asking me like, "Hey, can you make me that tremolo?" But they were interested in they were interested in the cable. And then slowly, I was thinking it might be an interesting, job to go into. And at the time, like I said, I was a computer nerd. I was a programmer, web developer. So all I did was work on a keyboard and put stuff on hard drives. It was super not very fulfilling at the end of the day. Just everything could just, go away, be out of date. Doesn't matter. A lot of work, a lot of, just dealing with clients in that level, which is I just didn't have a connection with. And I had so many friends that were guitar builders and pedal builders. And I was like, man, you guys are literally making something real, physical, and you're giving it to someone else that plugs it in and makes something from that thing that you just made, right? And I was just like, oh, that'd just be so cool to do that. And even cables, just the idea of connection, of creating something that's a tool that allows a musician to do something that's just exciting. It was exciting for me, exciting for everyone I'm like in bands with or musicians in the scene. Way more fulfilling. And then when I started pushing it towards a business, which was like insanely scary, I was making a ton more money as a computer programmer. And, everyone's just like, what are you doing? And luckily my wife is insanely awesome. She's a huge part of Rattlesnake. She was 100% behind the idea. And, she got way into it as well. And it started turning into a thing where when we started developing like a team, because again, I was a web developer. I was by myself. I would just be in my office. Clickety clackety on the keyboard all day and come out and go, that's crazy, whatever. And now
it's the end of the day. Yeah.
Now it's a team and we're all just, excited about, cool stuff. And it's just a different, fulfillment for me. And awesome. It definitely feels great. And I'm glad I went that way. And now when I look back at the business, now it's great. We have, a shop and, people working here. Still has like so far to go. And it's still like terrifying every day. Just like.
I think that means you're doing something right though. Yeah. Like that's, if it doesn't scare you at least a little bit, is it worth doing? That's a way more philosophical answer than I was expecting, and I love it. Like I love that for you. I love that you figured out that the old thing was just not working, and go after the thing that is more fun. That's great. I love that. So, does your wife play music?
No, she plays. Okay. She plays piano.
Okay. Nothing that needs a cable.
Nothing that needs a cable. But man, I mean, she's been a part of at first kind of the administrative stuff, and then eventually it was her and I soldering for a while, and until we started getting people on board. So I mean, she was like right in there with it all the way. And now as far as like her involvement in the business, it's like she's just everywhere and all sorts of stuff about keeping this place going. And so, yeah, she doesn't need to be a musician to really appreciate
Yeah, of course
that.
not.
Yeah.
There is one kind of funny story about the musician part. So I would talk about when we hired people that I prefer a musician because I want them to experience, like when they get hired, I said, you remember that feeling you've ever got on stage where something's not working? Band's looking at you, the crowd's looking at you. You're like panic attack, trying to figure out where in the signal is broken. You're unplugging stuff, plugging stuff in. It's like it's a butt pucker moment. It sucks. Everyone I know has that experience. And I was like, remember that. Like, stuff's going to be broken and some things aren't going to be, made to perfection. But if you think about that and we want to avoid that, that's great. Well, fast forward, there's a band called Twilight Sad. Love this band. And Amy and I go to this show. And right before the show, I gave them some cables and they're all excited. They just did their sound check. So we're in the backstage, give them the cables and they go, oh, great. I'm going to plug this in right now. And they're like, we just did your sound check. And they're like, yeah, there's no big deal.
What's wrong with you?
So they run out there and they start plugging these cables in.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, my God. So we sit in the crowd and Amy looks over at me and she's like, she's shitting her pants. She's like, what happens if the cables don't work? And I'm like, they got to work. And that was the same feeling as that butt pucker moment on stage.
Yeah.
Because when they came out and then boom, they hit it. And she was like, oh, my God, they worked. I was like... I knew they were going to work. I was
but there's that moment like, oh, well, what if they don't? Right?
Yeah.
But it's not just cables up there. You go pulling everything and replugging everything. Something that was not anything to do with Rattlesnake could have broken in that moment, and it would have been terrible.
Yeah. I was going, what are you thinking? But, it all worked out. But I wanted, this is the fact that Amy had that experience is like a real big thing. Because that's like,
she's in the club now,
That's the thing that we're all trying to avoid.
That is the worst feeling. I've done that a million times, and I've done it over stupid crap like, oh, I forgot to plug my amp in. I forgot to turn my pedal board on.
Isn't the light
oh my
on?
God, like none of my pedals are turning on. Why not? Oh my God. And then it's like, I plugged the thing into the power supply, but not into the wall.
Yeah.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
I tried to tune my guitar and go, my tuner's not working, and then realized I didn't plug my cable in the guitar. Like that.
I've done that.
That move.
Yep.
There you go.
Yep. And those moments on stage where you're just like, you cannot think straight. You're like so focused, but you're not focused on the right thing.
Your brain will not work correctly in that moment because of that feeling. Boy, that's really something. That is a visceral memory.
I remember, Justin, we were at a show. You were in a different band, and you come running over. You're like, I need to use your amp. Mine blew a fuse. And I was like, okay.
That amp blew a fuse.
Yeah.
The rectifier tube went and took the fuse with it. Well, actually, probably the fuse made it not take the amp with it is what happened. Because that's what a fuse do. I do remember that too.
I'm like, I hate that feeling so much. And I have a show coming up in May. And I'm just like, I'm not going to miss that. But I know I won't have to worry about my cables because they're made by Hank.
Hey.
Right.
Yeah. I think, so I said this on the show, I ordered some cables. I'm looking down at my pedal board with a bunch of Rattlesnake patches on it. My other cables are actually down in my basement. But the thing that I realized when shopping for cables was it had been many years since I'd bought anything in the cable department that wasn't like a grab bag at the register. Oh, I need an extra patch cable because I got another pedal kind of thing. Like an extra, here's a $3 patch cable from Guitar Center. Or I just need a longer cable or I need a shorter cable. Just these kind of cheapy, I'm going to grab that real quick and I'm going to move about my business. I'm going to be on my way. I find it really hard to get excited about cables because they are super necessary, right? They are like critical to the operation of one's entire guitar thing. You can't do it without them. But I think guitarists are also the type to be like, what's the cheapest thing I can get to make it work and just be on my way? And do you run into that? Do you run into like people saying like, why is it expensive? Or like, cause they're not expensive, but it's like the range of good or bad cable. Like you get what you pay for a little bit or a lot of it. You get this thing of like, why should I pay extra for this fancy one, quote unquote, when it does the same job as this one I've had for kicking around in the back of my car, getting rolled over with office chairs, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. It's I don't think of it as a right answer, wrong answer either. So it's like if someone wants to get a $5 cable off a Reverb or whatever, it's like, more power to you. That'll do the job. That'll be fine.
If they know what they're buying, right?
Yeah. And, there's a point where you might sit there and say, well, I'd like to see if there is a tone improvement, or I want something that's like, I buy the $5 cable every other month and that's starting to be annoying to me. Maybe if I get something with a little bit more durable, something I can tour with, or, something that's like really great in the studio. That's a thing where, I mean, you can say that about guitars and amps. I mean, you can have the cheapest amp in the world and whatever, but there'll be one point like, maybe it's time to get that, Fender Twin I've always wanted. It's like, so there's that. And definitely, I get the, why are yours so expensive? It's a slightly frustrating conversation, because it's, in cables, or you also hear in pedals, like, hey, there's only $4 worth of parts in there. Why is it $200? Right?
Yeah.
You get that stuff all day.
Yeah.
But that person wouldn't have a problem dropping $20 on a hamburger. You know what I mean? You're like, it's just one slice of tomato and a lettuce and, quarter pound of beef in there. That's like $2 worth of stuff, But
well, it's called markup. It's how businesses work.
Yeah, you have varying degrees of quality of a hamburger too, right? If you want the best hamburger you ever had, you're going to pay top dollar for it, So I also get the thing like, hey, just get a roll of cable and make them yourself. Well, people don't want to do that.
Yeah, like, okay.
Yeah.
Be my guest, guy.
Yeah. I've done plenty of cables. Like in a studio, I have a lot of cables, and I actually have 3 or 4 sitting in a pile over there. That's my these don't work pile, because nothing works forever, right? Yeah. And 2 of those are going to be second time repairs, but they've been there for over 2 years because I don't have that kind of downtime anymore, and I've replaced them by getting something at the, like, I get I get something at the store that's we're talking about XLRs right now. Actually, the guitar cables I've gotten have not broken. I did buy good ones back when I was playing, because I didn't buy the basement thing. It was something else, but again, it wasn't anything fancy. It was just, they're built right. They're not the lowest gauge in the world, and the connectors are covered and they're not going to rust, you know what I mean? And I took care of them too. And I know how to wrap a cable so that it doesn't twist itself apart in the inside and things like that. And there aren't interns in my studio. So those are all the things that make my cables last a long time. But I have made them, and the value in one that's made right by somebody who isn't me, you know what I mean? Like, and that's even a skill I have. It's like, I think about it when something breaks in the house, and it's like, there's a lot of things in this house I could fix myself. And some of them I still would choose to bring somebody in, because it's a matter of my time at a certain point. And it's like, I'm more valuable in my actual job, even though I know how to do this other thing, but it'll take me, at this point, especially, I don't solder very much anymore. Imagine, like, if I was going to try to do a cable on the level of like a Rattlesnake cable, and, well, first of all, I don't even know how to do all the other stuff besides the soldering that you do to it. I don't know how to approach that. So yeah, it's a totally different game. And like, what's your time worth? And also, like, the whole thing of, I don't know, like, we the guitar community went through the solderless cable thing many years ago. I can make all my cables. I can make the custom lengths, whatever. Okay, cool. Go ahead. And I had a bunch of that stuff in there. And they would eventually kind of like sort of wiggle apart, and you'd have to kind of put them back together again. They'd work, and then they'd wiggle apart again, and then you'd have to fix it, and they'd work again. And that's annoying, right? You got to do that every 2 or 3 months or something like that. And just, I don't know. I have a pile of old cables that, like, they work. They're just not great. They're a little crackly or whatever. But, and like, I'll be here in my office recording, and I like move the cables around out of the way, and I can hear it in my headphones, like, like in the line. I'm like, oh God, I should do something about this. I think that so I don't know if this was I'm interrupting your thought, but that solderless thing, there was a bit of, I feel like the progression of cable culture, which I've just decided is a thing, and I hope it actually is. But it was back when the good cables was, and I think I talked about this on the last episode because we mentioned that you were coming on. The good cables were made by Monster when I was a kid, right? That's what we understood to be you get the Monster cable, and sure, it costs more than the others. And for all we know, it was also better, but it was, you know what I mean? But it was a lot of marketing, and that's all kind of gone. And I kind of don't think they were any different. It probably really was cheap cable under there with kind of a rugged connector, I guess. But
a rugged, unrepairable connector.
Well, and some of them were, but you had to, but those were again, such a huge markup. So there was this whole mix of, yeah, to a certain extent, they're thicker and better. But there's some hocus pocus in there too. There's definitely some, like, you could spend more, you know, Monster was more than the cheap cables, but then you could get the super upgraded Monster, and there was definitely no way it was actually worth the price at that point. But but it's the hocus pocus, and it spills out into all kinds of, I mean, hi-fi audio is just full of it with cables that cost $1,000, and there's no way. There's no way.
So $1,000 difference in your experience.
But then we have the solderless things come through, and it was sold to me on like, well, this is like really, really nice cable. It's like really low capacitance, and it's going to brighten up the whole thing. And I think that was like sincerely correct, at least. Like I did my whole pedal board with it and everything, and it was good. You know, it was like really good, and it sounded different. It sounded like
they said it would.
Taking a blanket off your speaker, right? But it had these other faults. So that's like, this is like part way in. So it's like, oh, so there is a difference here. Like if you buy good cable that's not undergauged and things like that, like you can actually make a difference, especially if it's a long cable run. But then the other piece of it wasn't there. And so it was like some half of it.
Yeah, it was failing at the connector end and not the cable part. Like the
it
cable
confuses
was good,
the whole situation because it's not hocus pocus. But there is still nonsense out there, snake oil out there. So I shouldn't use that word now, should I? Anyway, no.
I have sort of a adjacent question to this that I was going to ask. Anyway, what is something about cables that you think more people should know about or be concerned about or like consider as part of their journey through guitar life?
What is and isn't hocus pocus in cables?
That's a couple different questions. I would say understanding cable capacitance is a big one. That's what's making it bright or dark, depending on the length. Cable capacitance also is a number of capacitance in picofarads, but it's also in relation to the length. So that's one thing that's kind of like not mentioned very often. Everyone will say like, hey, our cables are rated at 20 PF. Well, at what length? Because it varies.
Right, yeah.
If you have a 50-foot cable, it's not 20 PF anymore. If you have a 10-foot cable, it's not 20 PF, it's 18 PF. You know, if it's 20, it might be 22 PF. So it's not like this thing that just always 20 PF. It all depends on relation and length. So there's also the idea of that over-under wrapping. That's, to me, would be like the number one thing that, you know, I think musicians should really, you know,
about
try
how
to
store
adopt
the cable.
Yeah, how to wrap it.
Yeah, like
you know.
don't do the power cord over your elbow.
Or just do the circle, you know. Some people think they're doing a roadie wrap because it looks like, you know, they're putting in little circles. It's, you know, it's got to be over and under.
Right. So you reverse it. Yeah. And to clarify like what you mean by that, right? You're every time you coil it, you put a twist in it, sort of, to a certain extent. And then with the other one, you do it the opposite way. So you take it back out. And it's a thing like, I know I learned it a long time ago, and I can do it very, very fast now and have to teach it to people sometimes. And it's like, it boggles my wife, especially. She'll still look at me and just be like, what? I don't know what's happening right now. What are you doing?
Everyone that works here, first thing, we go through how to wrap a cable. And it's like, you know, it's like patting your head and rubbing your stomach. Like people just don't, it's such an awkward movement.
Yeah.
And it's
It is. And I can say, like, with the Rattlesnake cables, they come in the package and they're like ready to go in that format. And then from shipping and whatever else, they have a little twist to them still for a couple days. And I was packing up to go to band practice, and I'm like trying to like get it to do the thing, and I'm like, which way is this supposed to? Which way does it want to go? And I'm like, it's the opposite. I've just done the same move 4 different times in like different orientations, and it was like so clearly just the opposite. Like, whoop, there it goes.
Yep. Feel the way it wants to go.
Yeah. So if you don't do that, then the wrapping will start twisting inside. So that's like your classic extension cord, where it just like totally balls
Eventually
up.
You can see it.
Yeah, it'll twist inside the PVC over and over. I mean, it takes a long time, but it's like might as well just treat your cables right from the start. But but that's work. I don't expect everyone to do it. I've had bandmates in the past. I'd just be sitting there watching them wrap their cables. I'm not going to sit there and go, "Hey, let me show you how to wrap your cables." It's
actually you should.
Yeah, just like whatever. It's like if they want to learn, I could show them, but it's like my cables are nicely wrapped. But it really helps the longevity.
It does. Not to mention they lay flat better. They move. They transport better. Like there's a million reasons to coil them the right way, because I don't know. It's just better, right? When I was first starting to play guitar, and you just sort of like zip them up in whatever you could do, and then you put it down, and like the top half goes like whoop, and it like uncoils on uncoils on the floor. What the hell did I do that for?
It's a slinky.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
So how
do you encounter? Yeah. So how to wrap them is the thing that's oh man, could I not?
It's a good one.
I wasn't gonna think of that on my own for some reason, even though it's like half my life. But that's it, for sure. What do you How do I get to this? I was gonna say, like, on this question of like what's important about a cable? What's important about a cable that makes it a good cable versus a poorly made cable? Like, what are the important things? I mean, I know like you're talking about capacitance and stuff.
Yeah.
To a certain extent, that's just like how much shift are we going to have in the frequencies or something, and it's. Some of that is just it's unavoidable, like a physical reality of we're putting electricity on a wire, right?
Correct.
But I imagine that there are some things where I'm trying to achieve this question where I'm like going from my hocus pocus thing to like, what do you think? So what about that thing I said? Does any of that? There sure was a hell of a lot of nonsense for a long time, and I remember thinking, oh my God, like we gotta I just want to get the regular cables, which I eventually found good cables that stuck around because I treated them right, and they were good, and they're perfectly fine. So I don't know now. So what's hocus pocus and what isn't, and where are actual benefits coming from?
Like, are you saying like if you're going to spend money on a cable, like where that money should be going?
Yeah, where does Rattlesnake, when they say here's a corner we're not going to cut? If does Rattlesnake have a range of products? Right? Is there more expensive cables and less expensive cables, or is it all the same thing? No, they're all the same thing.
So
okay,
we
you designed your thing, and that's it.
Correct. Yeah. So I mean, we have a variety of cables depending on the cable type. So we have a flex patch, which is a smaller diameter than our instrument cable, but we don't make like the super awesome instrument cable and the bass player cable, and it's just an instrument cable.
Yeah.
And then we have our speaker cable, and we have an XLR cable. So those are all physics designed differently. They're all have different parameters when that cable is milled. So when I think of like what's a good cable, like what's the point, there's a few factors. So I always think of like the best clear tone as possible, the best durability, and then I also like the fact that we have our cable milled in the United States. So we work with custom wire mills to actually go do that, have that all shipped to us based off of our specs on each one of those cable types. But that capacitance is part of the physics of like how capacitance is handled is the distance between the center conductor and the shield. So that's why our cables are a little thicker, because I wanted a 20 gauge conductor in the middle. So I wanted a thick conductor. So some people do low capacitance cable in a thin cable, that means the conductor is like basically a hair. So that's, prone to breaking or whatnot. So it's like I wanted a 20 gauge in there. So to have 20 PF at 15 feet is what I was trying to say, is where my sweet spot is. So when you go to 20 feet, it could be 22, 21 PF, 10 foot, it's like 18, 19 PF. So I use a 15-foot cable. So I like that 20 PF tone as far as like how much clarity or high end is left in the frequency. And also it doesn't mean it's adding anything. It's not peeling any off. That's the difference, right?
Right.
So it's just starting with the best tone coming out of your guitar with, the best frequency hitting your pedals and everything, just a better way. I mean, if you have a tone sucking cable, you can add EQ and put buffers in there and boost it, and you can do all sorts of stuff. But why not just start with something that's like sounds okay from the start? And that's where a lot of people be like, I put in a lower capacitance cable and the classic, the carpet came off the amp. It's, it's like seems louder, it seems brighter, and those are things that as a musician, that makes you feel good. You hear the snap and it's like clear and it's like, oh yeah, this is lively. I have a lively cable.
It gives you this, like, you have this different relationship with the gear then, and you can kind of have it could make you perform better. It could make you more confident, like whatever it is. Those are tangible or intangible things that like do have an impact on the final performance or the performance, whether it's recorded or live or whatever.
Yeah.
So you said the gauge of the conductor affects the capacitance because of the distance to the shield. Is that's what you're saying, right? So in a sense, you're aiming at that target. You're aiming at that sweet spot, like you said. So if a cable, like that's why 15 for you and your construction, that's the ideal. And it sounds like then if you wanted to make a 50-foot cable that sounded closer to what your 15-foot cable sounded, you would have to change that gauge or change the relationship between them.
It'd be a really thick cable. Do that.
It'd have to get thicker. Okay,
it'd have to get thicker.
So then you're talking about really laying actual cable across. That thing would weigh 100 pounds.
It'd be some hose. You'd be laying some hosage. Probably 50. I mean, it wouldn't be super. It wouldn't have to be super fat for 50 foot. But then you have all the games of like, what kind of pickups are you using? Is it active pickups? Is it vintage low output single coil? Is it a humbucker? That's going to change that 50-foot sound.
And God forbid you're someone who likes to like grab a different guitar someday.
Yeah.
So the real answer to that is buffers and direct boxes, because if you want longer than 20, 25, 20, 30 feet, you want to be on XLR. You want to be on low impedance. Yeah.
Yeah, you'd have DIs or something go all the way across there. Even with a buffer, I don't think that would really help that much in a long run. You definitely want to go XLR and DI.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I think TC Electronic put a product out years ago that was something like that. It was like, you can have like the longest cable run ever. And it was like just a pair of DIs that was like singular product. Yeah.
So DI and then a reamp on the other side.
Yeah.
A reversed DI. So
yeah. I've another question from the community. Just curious about like what your take on the guitar community is in general, and where you see it going as a person who is making guitar accessories and stuff, but it's not a sound creating thing, right? It's not a pedal, it's not an instrument, it's not an amp. It is like an essential part that no one ever seems to talk about.
Yeah. I mean, I think more people talk about cables nowadays than they used to.
That's true. Yeah.
I mean, it's when I look at how many cable companies are out there, it's just like it's crazy, So at the same time, I'm like, well, there sure is a lot of people buying cables and are connecting with companies and different businesses for whatever reason. I always think the gear industry in general is one of the few sectors that can have this kind of this relationship between large companies and small companies. When you look at NAMM, you have someone building pedals in their basement at NAMM. You could have, giant company making pedals, and we're not like swayed like, hey, I only buy giant corporate stuff. You really hear that. And you know what I mean? it's just like if there was
That'd
someone
be a fun
making
character.
boutique TVs or something, you don't hear that. Who's making TVs or who's making,
Right. Yeah.
you know, whatever. But the music industry, for whatever reason, which is great. Thank goodness for me that there's room for like all of these people that just have an idea of making one pedal and actually making a business. And hopefully after 10 years are doing something. I mean, it's super saturated, super competitive in the sense of like numbers, not necessarily how businesses operate with each other. Because that's the other thing I always just think is amazing how all these different boutique businesses get along and are willing to talk to each other. We're all in this together and all, just trying to slog it out.
I was just going to say, like, you guys do a bunch of collabs too with like pedal builders, and I saw one go by with Honey Picks recently. I'm on the Honey Pick train. Love those guys. That's awesome. Like, there is a camaraderie that's really exciting.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we do case candy a lot, where we try to work with pedal companies, usually because there's just so many of them and they're just so fun to work with. It's just like, here, throw me some stickers and we'll throw them in boxes heading out the door, and work on giveaways. It's just a good way of like just
my Red Tech stickers that I got today.
Oh, nice.
They're gonna go somewhere,
Yeah. I mean, everyone likes getting that stuff in the mail anyway, so it's like, I come from
these bags, like these are the shit. Like all guitar players need bags, and like I don't think we know that though. That's the thing. Like you need like an extra bag just to hold like not just the cables, because like my cables are going in my guitar case.
Yeah.
But I do constantly need a little bit more room and stuff like this. Like you're saying, these canvas bags that Rattlesnake ships in. I got the box and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Like this, I got a free bag. This is awesome."
That's a good one. Let's talk about the sale. So when Derek buys a Rattlesnake cable and you figure out that it's Derek from the Tone Control and he's a really big deal, and you send him like a personalized thank you.
Oh yeah.
How do you think that makes the rest of your customers feel? He gets such special treatment.
I'm saying to everyone that Hank is the king of customer service, because that notepad that you sent with a handwritten note that says thanks for your order is in my guitar case also, because sometimes you need a pen and paper at practice.
Yeah.
But like you sent me a video, you sent me a coupon code that I still am just like, what am I going to buy? Because I just bought the cables that are going to last me the rest of my life. So like, what do I need?
I joke, but truly, we figured out why you're working 7 days a week is because you're taking the time with everybody.
I do. I try to do. I can't do every single one, but I try to do every one. I've been doing those videos for going on 3 years now.
That's insane.
I looked at the service and I wanted to see how many I did, and it doesn't go all the way back. But for the last 365 days, I did 1,600.
Wow.
So I try to do that for every first time purchaser. I try to do it if I can, second, third purchases. There's just a lot in there.
That's crazy, because
the customers are so number one for me. It's ridiculous, and it's you have to do it one cable at a time. You always hear people say that, one customer at a time, but literally that's important.
What happened was I placed an order, and like the next day or later that day, this video comes in. I was like, a video? Okay, that's kind of a little weird, and not like I've never heard of this
unusual.
before. But
he means unusual.
Yeah, like okay, like this is new, and so I like click it, and it's like not a canned thing, right? It's got you got my name and my order in there, and I was like sitting there with my wife. I'm like, holy shit! Like, look at this. This guy who's like busy making cables and running a business took the 30 seconds to do this thing and send it to me. That's bonkers. Like, there's no way this is sustainable. But here you are saying like, yeah, do it anyway. That blows my mind.
Yeah, I mean that's my personality. I'm a grinder. I don't have a problem like just doing the work over and over. I mean, it's just like that's what it takes, And
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, and those notepads. Everyone loves notepads. Everyone loves them. I mean, it's crazy.
My kid loves notepads.
I did a tours a few years ago. We played in Seattle, and we were playing at this place called the Central. And one day we go play this show, and on the stage is a set list. It was written on one of those Rattlesnake notepads, and I was just so blown away. Like I don't know what band it was. I don't know what it was, but just to see that on the stage, knowing it got used for like a set list, I was just like, man, this is the coolest thing ever.
That's the coolest thing.
Yeah.
Because I always try to carry a notebook and stuff to practice. Just, you never know. Like, you just need something. But I'm always like, this doesn't fit in my case, or like whatever it is. And I was like, I got this new guitar case. I got this new pad. Bam. It's like, this is the guitar case notepad. It is living in the case.
Yeah.
That's awesome, dude. Justin, are you okay? Like, I lost you for a second entirely.
Yeah, Discord rebooted, but y'all were still talking when I got back, so there's just a little hiccup, and it's all going to be fine in post. So, yeah. So everything we always run over an hour. Anyway, everything at Rattlesnake's made by hand. Yeah. And there's a lot of fancy customization, which, by the way, speaking of like what's going on with the culture right now, like that's the thing in every sector of people's hobbies and businesses and stuff like that is, quality product. And then this other personalization, which, I mean, for one thing, the extra shieldings on the outsides, the physical shieldings that are going to protect it. But then
crazy.
The color customization and stuff like that attaches it to you emotionally, right? Like, this is now like something that you picked out, and that's going to make you take care of your cables, right?
Yeah, like I've stumbled into this. Like, just over the years, like my pedal board is now coincidentally primarily black and gray. And my guitar back here is black and red. And I saw the Oxblood cables were on sale. And I was like, this is it. Like, I have stumbled into like this black and red and gray motif. And I guess I just have to do this now.
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah, I mean, if you're not following Rattlesnake on Instagram and newsletters and things like that, go fix that, because there's all kinds of sales and just other like crazy one-off color combo deals that are going on. It's rad. I'm like, I don't need more cables, but I do want to buy more, because I'm like, I love this color. Like, you know how like the 1981 DRV is put out in a bunch of different color combinations, and you're like, that's a great looking pedal, even though I already own it and it sounds exactly the same.
But not the black one.
Still want that. I have the black and red one.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I got the Stranger Things edition one. And, like, it's just, you want another one because it's cool looking. There's no other reason. It just looks sweet. I want someone to say, tell me about this cable. I brought those cables to practice for the first time. The second practice we've ever had. And there was a leak, and the carpet was all wet and gross. And I wasn't really that worried about my cables, because they had that weave on them, and they were just like, our bass player had cables that were wrapped in like a braided fabric, and they were wet and like drippy and disgusting and stuff. And I was like, ugh. But the weave was just no problem. Wipe it down, good to go. It's cool. It's cool. I love Rattlesnake. I just want to really quickly mention the Rattlesnake, or the snakehead cabled end design, which, if you're not familiar, it's like where like the weave on the cable ends, what is it, like 12 or 18 inches before the connector? Yeah. And it's in order to kind of protect your guitar finish. It rules. It's there. I
realized I had this website called up the whole time and I haven't been showing it. But anyway, yeah. So this extension here, so that doesn't scratch the guitar.
Yeah, it's great. And like, I've got a few guitars with nitro finishes, and especially this Nova back here, like you could sneeze on it and the finish would scratch. So it's really nice to not have to worry about that. Like, the guitar is going to wear out in a year anyway. So like, I don't want to, not in a bad way, it's going to look rad, but I don't want to put any unnecessary scratches in it like super early, and that's a good idea. Just straight up a good idea.
Yeah, we love it.
What do you think? Let's see. So nickel or gold? Is there a difference? Is there a reason I should choose one, or is it just color? Is it aesthetic?
Well, I always joke around. I go, depending on the situation, you seriously can get in a bar fight with someone about this topic. So I am on the fence or the side that says, unless all your contacts are gold plated, you get the benefit of nickel. Because it's your strong as your weakest.
Nickel's stronger physically?
No, everyone wants gold because it's a better conductor. And I'm saying, well, you're touching a nickel jack. And all your other jacks are nickel. Okay. Your patch cable's probably got a nickel tip on it as well. So with that said, my cable, I use gold because I like the color.
Well, shit.
I just like how it looks. But it's like,
sometimes it's just got to look cool.
Some people, will get all, nope. I only use gold plugs. It's like the best contact. I'm like, yeah. But you also have corrosion. That's a possibility. In Montana, we never have to deal with it. But I mean, I don't know if you're in Florida, you could get corrosion on your nickel. I don't know where gold resists it. I have no idea. But I've never ever seen corrosion like that on something. But I've never lived in Florida.
Yeah, but I think
humid.
if you're getting corrosion like that, your cables are probably like the least of your worries.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know. Like you kind of got some other shit going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like gold technically better, but not in a way that's going to be meaningful in the real world, just because what are you going to do? Replace every jack on your pedal board? And there's probably parts inside of there and of every pedal, and yikes.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's the whole chain,
oh my God,
right?
yeah.
It's the whole chain.
Yeah.
So,
and you get into pedals that are like a Strymon Big Sky or I have an HX Stomp on my board. Like you can't open that and put a new jack in it. Are you crazy? That'd be stupid. And and now how far are we from companies like Analog Man or somebody offering the gold jack upgrade? Right? This like ultimate, now you can use your gold tipped cables more effectively. I don't know. I'm like, sometimes I get really jaded about the guitar community and I can just feel that happening and I'm going to hate it so much.
I mean, when Rattlesnake first started and we were starting to sell, we only offered nickel for years. And then I started getting like, you got to get gold. I only use gold. And then I started like, okay, we'll start. I mean, it's customer first. So I'm trying to figure out like, we're getting too many requests. Got to do it. So it's always been like an evolving thing. But yeah, at first, I mean, even way back when it first started, we only offered straight plugs. Didn't even offer right angle for a long time. It's just a part of the growth, you got to buy right angle plugs and parts are expensive. So
right.
Yeah.
I was always like, oh, right angle plugs all day. It's like the only thing that ever matters. They're the best ones until they're not, like until you play a Stratocaster, right? Or until you play a Tele with a cup jack on it and all these other things. And, right angle doesn't always fit in the front of your amp that well. Stuff like that. So mine are both, right angle on one side, straight on the other, and like you can just flip it around if you need to.
All depends. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like the silver look better, so all my stuff said I'll avoid
go for the nickel
if I can help it. Yeah.
Cool, man. All right. Well, I don't want to drag on forever, and we are way over time as usual as we do. So, what do you say? You want to get out of here?
Yeah.
Justin?
All right.
Yeah?
So
cool.
Right.
So head to rattlesnakecables.com. Is that correct? Right?
Yep.
Rattlesnake. I don't have it open. Just
sure looks like it.
Rattlesnakecables.com. Find Hank and Rattlesnake over on Instagram and other socials as well for coupons, giveaways, deals on cool, rad new color combinations, stuff like that. Maybe I'll get an XLR for my mic setup here. This is also the cheapest XLR I could find when redoing my podcast setup. So, look at all this stuff you guys are offering. That's so cool.
Custom looms, headphone extension, balanced. Oh, look at this. TRS. Yep.
Yeah.
There we go.
Hank, did you make MIDI cables at one point, or am I making that up?
Nope, but it's on our list. I just got some MIDI plugs in. So we got IECs coming too. That's actually coming next.
Oh, here we go.
Maybe I'll save my coupons.
I'd love. Tell me if this is unreasonable, but I would love an IEC that doesn't have that like bend memory that they all always have. Like if it's actually were treated like a regular cable, but it's got to be that they're so thick, right? There's so much metal in there.
Yeah, I mean the ones that we have too are 14 gauge too, so they're beefy. But locking IECs on them too, so that's kind of nice.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah, keep an eye out for that.
Well, I'll keep those coupons safe until the newsletter comes along. So, I think that's going to do it for us.
Okay. Well, then, the typical closeout stuff. Thanks for listening / watching, everybody. Thanks, Hank, for joining us. And stick around for a second, by the way, in case Derek hasn't told you about that nonsense. But stick around after we close. We do one extra thing. So thanks, everybody. You know where to find us on discord.io/tone control, which is a free community that everybody just plays around and has fun in. And if you want to support the show, we're on Patreon at patreon.com/theToneControl. And there's lots of stuff, some extra things on there for you if you're up for it. And we appreciate that very much. Those people this week, wait, I always got to remember to start the music. Those people this week are Nick Greenwood, Carson Ricketts, Matthew Fenslaw, Ryzen Wolf, Jamie Evans, Doug King, Big Daddy Doug, Righteous Ryan Johnson, Steve Huffman, Jonas Sabatini, Eric didn't change his name in time, Brian Gower of the Tone Jerks podcast, Mego Guitars, Andrew Welsh of Andrew's Alcove, Doug Christ of 37 Effects, and Sean Wright of Lollygagger Effects. Thank you all ever so much, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
See you next time. Thanks, Hank.
See ya.